bet you didn't know that you could pick your party or your theme, literally.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
You know, we miss Bob Healy, God bless him, God rest his soul, you know, the cool moose. And you think maybe that was one of the more unique party labels that you'll find in Rhode Island political history. Well, we've got a candidate who's running for the mayoralty of Pawtucket who is sick of scandal. And that is the slogan, that is the party, that is the, I don't know. We'll find out from John Arcaro coming up in just a little bit. This is going to be an interesting conversation. And I may sell him out because many of you know him as somebody else. You'll have to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, welcome in. And by the way, there's his head because you're supposed to stay over there, for God's sake. You know, you're going to break some ground here today. First of all, no one's ever heard of your party. Second of all, no one's ever put their head in the middle of the screen to start the show. So here we go. Get over there. Let's go over here to the right camera. You know, the magic of television, foiled by reaching for the water. Spirited sparring, they say, is going on here. Headline in the big race for the presidency. Trump doubles down in naming a combative true believer as a campaign chief. This guy is a take-no-prisoners guy, no doubt about it. So if the Donald was going to be schmoozed into trying to be a little bit more smoother, the game's over. Here's the latest.
Donald Trump attended his first classified intelligence briefing at the FBI offices in New York on Wednesday. He also talked about his plans to take on terrorists with advisors and congressional leaders in Trump Tower. But Trump is shaking up his campaign staff with less than 90 days until the election. Stephen Bannon, who runs Breitbart.com, now joins the campaign as its CEO, and Kellyanne Conway joins as the new campaign manager. Paul Manafort will remain chairman, but with a diminished role.
He is still the same man who insults Gold Star families, demeans women, mocks people with disabilities, and thinks he knows more about ISIS than our generals. There is no new Donald Trump. This is it.
Clinton did not talk about her email problems. The FBI has handed over notes from its investigation of her private email server to Congress. Republicans are dissecting the notes to see if she perjured herself when she testified before the House Select Committee on Benghazi. Clinton maintains she told the truth to Congress and the FBI. Craig Boswell, CBS News, the White House.
Thank you, Craig. But here's the thing about Hillary that you really need to pay attention to. She's already sold Bernie out. Here's the headline in, this is actually, I think, a really cozy headline for her. We're moving down, Jess. Hillary sells out, as they say in the rundown. Hillary Clinton's free college tuition plan short on specifics. Well, that's being kind. I just want to remind you that Bernie Sanders back in the convention announced to everybody that there was a deal brokered between him and Hillary Clinton, he and Hillary Clinton, for all of us who might be earning $125,000 a year or less, free tuition at four-year colleges, public universities and colleges. And he's going to pay for that through some kind of taxation on Wall Street transactions and the like. And she, at the convention, in order to secure the nomination and quell the opposition, was all with it, right? Free tuition for public schools, meaning colleges, 4 years, universities, that kind of thing. Well, guess what? Yesterday, she changed her tune and said, we're going to make public colleges and universities for 4 years affordable. And we're going to make community college free. That is a complete sellout from 3 weeks ago. So for those of you who think that she's latched on to the Bernie agenda for good, she latched on to the Bernie agenda and borrowed it in order to be able to get out of the convention. She'll start moving more to the middle and more to the middle and more to the middle. By the time the election comes, she'll be right smack dab in the middle, and you Bernie Sanders folks might be looking for Jill Stein or somebody else to bail you out. In the meantime, coming home, Providence panhandling is a serious problem. It's not just panhandling, though. It's about people just sleeping, you know, in the city, Kennedy Plaza and the like. It's called homelessness, and it's not an easy issue to resolve. Headline in the Providence Journal yesterday, a forum, no easy fix in sight. I'll tell you, there's really no easy fix in sight when you have no real leadership. I mean, Joe Paolino, the former mayor of the city, and a guy who's invested in the city for a long, long period of time and owns a lot of property in the city, has now kind of assumed the role. We have a picture of him, and oh, who's the other guy? Oh, that's the mayor of the city. You would think that the mayor of the city would be leading the charge to rid the city of this challenge. It doesn't mean rid the city of these people. It means rid the city of this challenge. Now, every American city's got this challenge, but every American city's got to have a mayor who articulates a philosophy and then B, executes a plan to make things better. When Joe Paolino is taking charge via his chairmanship of a volunteer committee in the business world here in the city and is able more or less to dictate to the mayor as he sits there and takes notes and kind of blah, 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 it gives you an indication that the city right now is listing at best. Maybe it's the Olympics. Maybe it's the summer, I don't know what it is, but we're not paying a lot of attention to this trauma going on to our deep south. The headlines are tough enough. The stories we ought to be paying attention to.
The flooding crisis punishing southern Louisiana intensified Tuesday. 16 more parishes were added to the federal disaster declaration. Here in Sorrento, floodwaters have rushed downstream, devastating the small community and leaving the local fire chief at a loss for words.
We're losing a bunch of homes, a lot of.
National Guard troops carried out more rescues in Baton Rouge. So far, 30,000 people have been saved. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards says many have still been reluctant to evacuate.
People who live in homes that have never flooded don't leave their homes when you warn them of an impending flood.
What do you tell the 11,000 people who are still in shelters right now?
That we are moving heaven and earth to get them back in their homes as soon as possible.
2 days of record rainfall dumped more than 2 feet of rain in parts of Louisiana. On Sunday, volunteers rescued Mary Ellen Morgan and her family. Tuesday, we found her at the now flood-damaged home.
Lose any of your personal belongings?
I don't even know.
Do you care?
No, I don't. We are safe. We are well. I mean, how much more blessed could one person be?
The cleanup here will take months. Already 60,000 people have signed up for FEMA assistance, but the danger isn't over yet. There is more rain in the forecast.
You know, the human condition is an incredible thing, and the way that people are just changed by these things is, well, only articulatable if you're in the middle of it, right? But the way people just change perspective when they're suffering with something like this, and all of a sudden their possessions are so less important than the lives that they share. Some people call it a blessing. That woman is one tough cookie. I don't think you and I would consider it a blessing, but it would be a blessing if we sent some help down there. So send a couple of bucks and a couple of prayers. Acts of God, they call it. It's a weird way to refer to it. Alrighty. Do we want to do the California fires? Of course. And also in California, they got the California fires. We should mention that. And the firefighting heroics that are going on out there seem to be an almost everyday experience for the people in California. It's dry. And by the way, speaking of dry, the governor says here in Rhode Island, take care and don't use a lot of water because we have our own drought conditions. I don't think we're going to have to worry about something like that. But you can help the water supply by easing up until we get some good rain. All righty, can we transition here to what we're talking about in terms of guest? We can. That is not just a thought, that is a theme for our guest this evening. Check out this headline. Sick of scandals candidate. Arcaro runs for mayor in Pawtucket. And John is here. Welcome.
Welcome, Dan.
We are not unfamiliar with each other. He's a guy that I have known through the radio, and I'll let him ID himself if he chooses to do so. I never sell out a source, and I never sell out a listener, unless, you know.
I've actually called into your show at least twice, I believe.
Oh, for those of you who watch the TV and listen to the radio, I can make this make sense to you a little bit later on in the broadcast. Welcome to the broadcast. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Is this a serious candidacy?
Absolutely.
Sick of scandals means what? I mean, obviously it speaks for itself, but what are you trying to accomplish
Well, that's
here?
a brand. That's going around the world at this point. There's a few scandals going on, not just in Pawtucket, but also all around Rhode Island that folks out there are familiar with. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks over the years, and especially this year, that, you know, we're fed up. So when you sign up to be a candidate...
Did I miss this? This is a brand going all around the what? The world?
All around the world.
No, seriously, is this something you latched onto?
No,
that you
started
that you
it.
bought on that you found on Google, or
No, I actually
what?
founded it.
You founded it.
Yes, I
Sick of
did.
Scandals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a second. You established it, but you're saying it's growing. Just going to nod?
Yes, I am.
Wait.
It's actually...
No, I'm confused. I mean,
No,
when you
because
say
from that-
it's a growing thing, did you pick up on something, or you started something
Once
that
I
the world was
started that
picking
at the end of June, everyone, their mother, has come up to me and said, you know, we're sick of scandals too. Is this an actual party? How do I get involved? I said, no, this is my candidacy. It's not an official party. When you sign up to be any elected official, you have 3 words underneath where you can put your political philosophy, and that's mine this year. I'm sick of scandals. In the state of Rhode Island, the 2 biggies, you're probably very well aware of them, are the 38 studios and the truck tolls. Well, the fellow I'm running against hasn't even taken a stance on either of those, so I think he should. And specifically, it's funny you talked about fire earlier. You just had that piece about California. If I came here and said, my first thing as mayor I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down a fire station, I'm going to take that land, I'm going to give it to a private company, I don't think I'd get 10% of the vote, but that's exactly what's trying to happen now in Pawtucket.
So we'll have to talk about Don Grebian's plan and a little bit more specific when we come back. We'll ask, what is the relevance of the Pawtucket mayoralty to 38 studios and the truck tolls? You get a little bit more philosophy from our mayoral candidate. Stay tuned. That is the mayor of Pawtucket, who, you know, I have credited with, I think, some pretty significant leadership in trying to, you know, rope-a-dope and then get aggressive on McCoy Stadium. And for the most part, I think he has served the city well when it comes to the Paw Sox situation. John Arcaro is running against Don Grebian in Pawtucket. And we brought John in because, look, John, he's a funny guy. You're a smart guy. But for a living, you do what?
I'm a salesman.
You're a sales guy. And I am absolutely certain that you are very successful because you're a people guy. You've got a great sense of humor. But I think in the years that I've known you on and off, John's a listener to the radio show, and I've had a chance to meet him. In fact, I ran into him in the emergency room one night when both of us were there with our kids. It was just one of those nights. How many years ago was that? That was a long time ago, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 years ago. I don't know how long ago.
At least 5,
Yeah.
probably 6.
But you know, in addition to being kind of a wise guy, funny sense of humor, you have a sincerity and concern about you that kind of is a vibe. So I don't see you as some kind of gadfly running for office. At the same time, you don't have much foundation politically. So when I saw this Sick of Scandals thing, and Lex did too, I said, yeah, get him in here. What are you trying to accomplish with this thing? This isn't your first run for
Not
office.
at all.
You've done this a handful of times.
I've run in 2004, 6, 8, 10, and 12, and 14.
Which some people say, oh, so Dan, he is one of those crazy dudes. So?
No. I grew up in a political household.
You did?
My dad was a state senator back in the 60s, from 66 to 72.
Okay.
Ran for governor in 72.
So do you run by habit? You run for purpose? You run for message? You run for theme? What are you doing?
In 2002, I worked on Bruce Bayek's campaign. His wife was a good friend of mine. I worked with her. And I told him that year, I said, Bruce, I don't care if where I'm living in 2 years.
I have to remind people that Mr. Bayek actually gave John Harwood the run for his money and almost took the then Speaker of the House out as a write-in candidate, yes.
I told him,
Harwood was in the middle of a scandal at that time.
Another scandal out of Pawtucket. In 2004, I ran basically out of protest. I ran against a woman that hadn't had an opponent in 18 years. Helene Coder. I basically did very little. I knocked on a few doors. I got about 28% of the vote. I then moved to a different part of Pawtucket, and in 2006, I ran a while I didn't run a campaign, I put my name on the ballot. My dad dealt with, excuse me, he died last month. My dad that's okay. My dad dealt with mental illness his whole life, and he had a very big episode at that point, so I didn't really run a campaign. I ran in 08, 10 and 12 and 14. I got 44% of the vote in 2012 against the number 3 person in the House, Patty O'Neill, who was the majority whip at the time. So I never do anything for, some people say I have a good sense of humor. I want to improve my neighborhood. I want to improve my city. I don't want my kids to leave Rhode Island one day. That's why I run.
Running for the mayoralty in the city, do you think you've got the experience and the preparedness to be able to, run an administration for a city that, in many ways, is right at the intersection of flourishing or failing, seems to me?
Oh, it is. In fact, when the bond rating recently came out, they said, the very last thing they said was, beware, because this could go either way, depending on the national economy. It could sink or swim. So we are right on the edge still. The biggest thing involved in leadership is surrounding yourself with very good people. The biggest thing I have going for me is I have nothing to lose. I don't owe anybody anything. I've been involved in politics so long, Dan, that I've seen every ugly side of it. I've seen the payoffs, I've seen favors done, and up front I've seen all that stuff.
How can you be in a position not to owe anybody anything, yet suggest that you're intimately involved in the political scene? That almost seems oxymoronic.
Intimately involved in the sense of I've seen it firsthand. I've not only run 6 times, I do a heck of a lot of neighborhood stuff, whether it's sports, PTA, basic, different events and so forth. I know just about every neighbor I have within about a half mile because I run so often.
Are you putting a formidable candidacy together in the sense of traditional fundraising, advertising, organizing, volunteer crowd on the street, hitting the doors, knocking on the doors?
Traditional advertising, as we know, and as you know, is changing monthly. Twitter, everywhere over the internet. I'm all over there. I'm not very big right now on, let's take out a full page ad in the Projo, the Pawtucket Times. That's kind of old school stuff. But yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think one of the mayor's biggest functions is to be an ambassador for the city, and right now I'd like to give you the opportunity. Have you ever been to a Taste of Pawtucket?
Yes.
Well, there you go. It's a week from tomorrow night.
And you'll be shaking hands there.
Shaking hands.
No, it's a good spot. Yeah, we have
It's
actually.
the best.
We really have enjoyed it. And Pawtucket's got a lot of stuff going on. It actually operates under the radar in some ways, other than the Paw Sox itself. But I mentioned Don Grebian at the start. We got a good working relationship with him. He's accessible. I think he's navigated the Paw Sox situation pretty professionally. Do you have any qualm with what he's done there?
No, not except, as I said, with regard to the fire station. That's a fire station that's critical.
Fire station is proximate to the stadium.
It's right there.
Right there.
It is, Station 3 is very centrally located.
He's selling it to
It's
what
critical.
private entity? Help me with that again.
He wants to knock it down and give it to the Paw Sox for extra parking.
Right, okay.
That's unacceptable.
Well, if there's a safety issue involved, he wouldn't get away with it. So what gives?
Well, he had a meeting back in April, May, and he said, okay, we're going to have a meeting with all the residents of the neighborhood. We're going to talk about this. Halfway through the meeting, he said, oh, by the way, we've already decided this. We're going to get rid of Station 3, and it was a zoo. It really got hot and heavy in there. So he's basically decided that already.
Well, if he's decided it, that's listen. You see, I'm not going to fight his battles. He'll certainly come here, and I'm guessing you'll share some time with him if he accepts a little conversation, a debate, I guess is the old-fashioned word. You do that right here or on the radio with him?
Do it right here, Dan.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or on the radio.
But my guess is that he's done some kind of study that shows that you can cover the space. I mean, nobody likes to see their fire departments shut down or the local precinct fire departments shut down. I mean, that's a freak show usually for residents, but eventually they calm down when they find out that there's no real safety issue.
Well, they also did a study that said McCoy Stadium needs X million in renovations when they wanted to move it to Providence. You can come up with different kind of studies. There's actually been a very serious basement fire since that meeting. That kids were almost killed, and they could have been killed if that station weren't there. It's a huge issue. I do a lot of volunteering with the basketball also, and in fact, one of the guests you had is Larry Holloway. I'm kind of his left arm in the Midnight Basketball League and basketball in Pawtucket.
Great
in general.
project.
Very good. And at the Last weekend we had a charity basketball tournament between the Providence and the Pawtucket Fire, Providence and Pawtucket Police. Every fireman came up to me and said, "John, don't worry. I can't think of one fireman that's going to not vote for you." So it's a hot issue.
Okay. When we come back, what else does John visualize for the fair city of Pawtucket? Stay with us. By the way, the sick of scandal theme, if you don't have a formal party affiliation, you can write down 3 words that people know you by when you're running for office. You didn't know that, did you? So now we're with Bob. Did Bob use that? I think Bob used that. Duh.
Bob Venturini.
And of course, Bob Healy, the cool moose. So there you go. You've learned something new. Don Grebian has reacted to John's candidacy running for mayor in Pawtucket, and the Associated Press quotes him as saying that he's an anti-everybody. That's what he's run on before. But to his credit, you know, he wants to be heard. He's a volunteer. Actually, that's typical Don Grebian. He can't give you a full whack because he's too nice a guy. Since you were talking about the midnight basketball, are you anti-everything?
Well, when I saw that, my landlord came upstairs and he said, "John, what is this?" He's from Cape Verde. My wife and children, who are from Haiti, were also very surprised about that comment. So I'll let that comment speak for itself. It's totally false.
Well, the notion that you're sick of scandals, how does that apply to this specific race? You know, you want the mayor to be more accountable for 38 studios and the truck tolls. In what way? What does he have to do with 38 studios?
He hasn't come out with any stance on either of those 2 issues. He hasn't come out with, okay, let's see all the information about 38 studios. Where's the report on that? He hasn't come out on the truck tolls as well. There's a whole...
Is that a pick your battles decision for him that's actually prudent?
Well, in terms of 38 studios, I'd probably say the AG being from Pawtucket might have a little bit something to do with that. There's also...
What AG? We have an AG in this day?
Dan, I didn't say that.
He's a rumor. Oh, sorry, I went off the tracks. Give me a 30-second vision for the city of Pawtucket.
Well, I grew up in a public school household. My mom taught for almost 30 years right here in East Providence as a public school teacher and a librarian. I've been on 4 different PTAs, been a president of a couple of them in Pawtucket. I am very, very involved with the schools. And that's 50% of your budget.
That's not an answer to my question. I mean, good resume. What's your vision? 15 seconds. What's your vision for the city?
My vision is to be all-inclusive. Not just certain people that live in certain neighborhoods, but get everybody involved in this thing.
Going to tell people what your handle is on the radio?
Well, I'll tell people sickofscandals.com. If you're on Twitter, it's @sickofscandals. You could go on my Facebook page, and there's a fellow named Tommy from Providence who spoke to me in the back room there. He said, "Hey, we're the same guy."
You're on WPRO. Usually a quip. I'll say, thank you, Tommy from Providence. Cat's out of the bag. They are one and the same. It's kind of like Batman, you know, kind of like Superman. Come back. We'll see if the mayor will join you.
All right.
Good to see you.
Thanks again.
All right. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. Tommy from Providence. What is going on with Ryan Lochte? Have you seen this? You know what? Can our superstar athletes just play, just swim, and shut up and just behave themselves and whatever? I mean, there's B-roll of them going back to the Olympic Village and passing security, but the story, oh, I got robbed at gunpoint when they may have messed up a convenience stop. What in heaven's name? We'll have more conversation about that as we go, I'm sure. We're out of time, but just swim, man. Good night.